he was running from the police in Mr. Graw's cornfield. And anyways, it was very scary. He did get away. And so it was kind of unnerving because like the kids and I got home and Eric wasn't home. So I'd like go through the house and check all the rooms. And then when Eric got home, he checked all of our stuff as well. So as of this morning, I don't know if he's been caught yet or not, but something my husband got a text message and I was like, well, how did you get this text message? And he said, I don't know. So I looked it up, and Cass County has a thing on the website, and it's called Notify Me Alerts. I still have no idea how my husband got on this, but you can click on the Notify Me Alerts. It has your ad, like you type in your address, and then it will send you information. So as the like I know a lot of the neighbors on that section of our life, and so I just sent out massive messages to everybody like, hey, this is what I know. Make sure everything's locked up. So I hope nobody ever is in that situation. It also has like weather alerts. So but yeah, Cass County Notify Me alerts. Um I I hadn't heard of it. I don't know if anybody else had. So
Definitely have not. And I'm bad about locking stuff up out where we are. Like nobody out there, and so it would be very easy for someone to come out there, but it's very dangerous for somebody to go out there too. They have to make a really important decision to go out there and get on someone's property out in the middle of nowhere because they don't it's
yeah.
out there. So you don't know who you're going to deal with when you get out there. So it's interesting that someone would still be gutsy enough. I have another use a word I would use, but we'll use gutsy for right now to go out there and actually do that. So um yeah, we have cameras up so I can see what's going on, but I just don't lock everything up just because they're going to kick a door in. I know they will if they do want in. But that's unfortunate that this guy's doing that.
Yeah, I didn't realize that he had a history right down the street from our house just 2 years ago. That's terrifying because we've lived in our house 10 years now. But yeah, so tell your clients it's just a peace of mind. Cass County, notify me. I can share it on our Facebook page as well, the link for it. And then you can tell them, hey, get on this. It'll tell you what the weather's doing or flooding or any situations that could arise. The text message Eric got yesterday was there's suspicious activity at 219th and Y. So, yeah. So, anyways, that was a wild situation that I hope never ever happens again. It was where he ran was literally right next to the house I have for sale on 219th Street. And she has a very creepy cellar. So the sheriff drove past our house and I said, I have that house listed. I've spoken to my seller. She's not home. Will you please go check all her barns because she's a single lady and she's all by herself. So hopefully they did because that was another scary factors that he could be anywhere. Um, so I have a couple of problems. And as we know, in any real estate transaction, there is always fun things that come up. I have listened to many, many discussions about solar panels, but now I'm in this situation myself, and it sucks. So I have a seller that spent $30,000 on solar panels. And I wanted to give a shout out to Ryan and Stephanie because I called them on Saturday night to get some guidance, and it was very much appreciated their time. Steph and I worked through some different scenarios and which direction to go. So now we're at the point where my seller has contacted her insurance company to come out and is filing a claim. And she was going to ask them if they cover taking the solar panels off and replacing the solar panels. Has anybody ran into this where the insurance did cover it or they didn't cover it?
Yeah, insurance covered it for me.
They did?
Yeah.
Hallelujah. Okay. Okay.
What company, Jake?
It was with American Family.
Ends with American Family. Thank you.
I think it was like $7,800 to have them taken off and put back on. Last one that we did.
Okay. Yay. Okay. So there's hope. Okay. Okay. Cool. Awesome. Okay. And then, okay. Well, I am going to say a prayer about that and hope to God that this insurance company is American Family. Okay. So, my seller, since she's already out all this money and she hasn't paid off the solar panels, and she also purchased a water filtration system, which is also not paid for. And then she's paying the buyer's agent his full 3%. We're at like a negative $47,000 just in those three items. So she is pretty on the hard stance that she does not want to pay for the deductible. And I think the buyer's agent and the buyers are discussing that more in depth, and hopefully they're willing to pay it. What have you guys seen? Because I visited with Marcia and she said maybe they could split it. And I was like, I like that idea. But my seller is so stuck on not paying the deductible. Any other ideas? She's a tough one. But this is going to be a great deal. It's going to be a great deal. I just have to figure out how to. I got her to give away a refrigerator that she was pretty fixated on. So,
And you didn't change the price of the house for the repairs to the roof. So you're getting a new roof, and the solar panels are going to get replaced on there again. So that'll all be intact still. And you haven't asked for any kind of improvement on price.
nope, for at 425.
And the
Yeah.
solar panels are going to be paid off, so they won't have an electric bill. They get a new roof. Their insurance is going to be lower per month. How much is their deductible?
$3,500.
Kind of.
Was that 3/4 of a point? So not bad in the grand scheme of what it looks like purchasing a house. It's the right house for the buyer. They probably would consider it. Are they asking for anything else to be done to the house?
Nope, they sent over an in its present condition right out the gate. I didn't even ask for one. So, yeah. So I kind of think they should. I don't think it's asking too much if they're getting all these other items.
Well, heck, just with the utilities and the insurance, they'll make that $3,500 up in a year.
True. Yep. Okay.
Plus the appreciation on the house from the improvement with the market. And it's not a ton right now, but it's still going to be at least a couple points, if not 3.
Well, what would you have priced that house at with a brand new roof and no utilities or no electrical payment? Probably would have been at least $5,000 higher.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Good stuff. Good stuff, guys. Okay. Okay. Chad, you're on, right? Chad Green? I think I saw him. I saw your question on our Facebook page. Do you want to go into your tax question so we can help you with that?
Oh, well, that'd be great. Thank you. Yeah, just like I said, new build, and you look at what they paid in taxes last year, $104. Not really helpful. So you look on Realist, and you can see the appraised value. You chat GTP or Google how to figure that formula. It gives you a formula. The big variable was you need to call and find out or find out what the tax levy percent is. So I call, and I don't have it in front of me, but say it was 6.4817. So you just do the math, and I come up with $4,040. And they say, well, we don't know what the bill is yet, but here's your tax levy amount. So you kind of backfill the data. So my question is, $104 is not helpful as to put in his, sorry, to put in his taxes. But so do you think I just put 4,040 and put a little disclaimer in there as, that it's, whatever the word would be, a nice little disclaimer. What's everyone's thoughts, and what would my professionals do? Man, this is a response we got on the Facebook too.
This is a tough one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is this the property that's like over $1 million?
Yeah.
Well, fully assessed, whenever that's going to occur, I can't imagine the tax bill only being $4,000.
Okay.
Something to think about. We know it's not $140.
Correct.
So is it best to just put what we do know exactly with the notation, 2024 taxes based on, lot, and let the buyer and their agent do their own research on that?
Okay.
And then the other question would be, when will they have the exact tax figure?
According to what I saw, is November the bills will go out.
Okay. So we're 60 days away from probably having that exact tax figure. And my guess is, was the house fully completed in all of 2025?
Yes, about a week ago.
It just got finished, right?
Correct.
Okay. So chances are it's probably going to be lot only for part of the year, and then a fully completed house for part of the year. So even this year's tax bill will probably be some watered down figure. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if it were me, this is just how I would do it versus try to get, and I don't remember where this house is, but let's just say this house was in Raymore, Missouri, fully assessed 1 point whatever million, that's a $10,000, $12,000, $14,000 a year tax bill. Now how long would it take for a new house built to get to that number? That's a whole different story. My lean would be to just go with what are facts in the comment. The tax bill, the 2024 tax bill is based on lot only. Once you do get the tax bill in November, assuming we're still in the process, then I would update that with the tax bill and say that amount was $4,000. This is 2025 tax bill appears to be based on partial completion. And again, let the agent buyer do their research. Somewhere we should all have a disclaimer in there that says, it's up to the buyer's agent to confirm, the buyer and buyer's agent to confirm square footages, taxes, those sorts of things. That would be my lean versus trying to create a figure that I still don't think is going to be anywhere near what the fully assessed value would be.
Perfect.
Tax figure. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, that is what's going to happen.
Yeah. But if anybody else want to chime in, I'm not sure I've run into that before. So, but I tend to go with facts. But it won't be long before you'll know exactly what that tax bill is, and you can plug that in. You're going to have the same disclaimer. This tax bill is likely based on partial completion for 2025.
Yeah, Chad, we got that last year on our property. Sorry, Lon, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah,
we got a partial last year. So our taxes were $90 for our property for the year. And then at the end of the year, we finished the house in September last year. And then they gave us a partial assessment of what they thought. And I think we ended up paying like 900 and some taxes on the house last year. I was like, yes, $900 for taxes. This is wonderful. And it will never be 900 again. And I know that, but I was waiting for them to reassess it and see what it was. But I was also looking at how they were assessing the property, because we are on ag land and we do farm our land. So I want my land I want it taxed properly with what we're doing to it. And then I want them to assess my house separately and then have that combined tax bill for one property, instead of them just saying, oh, it's all residential or rural residential. I want it taxed. So there's a difference in how they do that. So depending on how large your lot is, where your house is, you can look at all that. And then you can also, if you feel like when it does get done and it doesn't look right, you can always call down to the county and ask them for some clarity on things. And you can also, we had the chance to submit some things to the county to prove like, hey, we're working like almost 13 and a half acres of this in crops. And so they're, oh, okay. And they adjusted a few things. So I don't have those final numbers just yet. But what I do know is, as Lonnie pointed out, you will have a portion of the house once it's complete. They'll assess that. And then after the next year, reassess again. They'll come back out, they'll look at it again, and then they're going to hit you with a big one then. And that's when it's probably going up. But never assume anything. I would never
Well,
do that.
thank you. Thank you. Because I was real close to going, well, this 4,000 is going to be closer than 110, I appreciate that. Yeah, I have the similar deal, Ryan. Mine, I get a 2-line. One is a residential that's fairly small, and one is an ag line. And I really wish it was all ag. So,
I try to get it, but they're like, you live somewhere out there, so they
Yeah.
want their money for the house.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So,
And this home is in Jackson County, and they've called. He claims that it's all it gets just automatically assumed it's residential, and then they want to come out and see some kind of evidence of what you're farming. But since we're selling it, that's not our problem. So
sure. Sure.
But,
And
yeah,
we had a
perfect.
client that just bought. Yeah, we had a client that just bought, like, I think it was 5 acres, just inside Jackson County. And we looked at the taxes that were reported. It was almost 10 grand on this house. It was like a $650,000 house. We're like, wow, that's kind of pricey. So we started looking around the other properties there. And I think the other property, and I know it was high, it was like 9 grand, right? So we looked at the properties around it, and those were like at 5 and 6,000. We're like, okay, this is more realistic. So it looked like the neighbors maybe appealed what their tax was on their property when Jackson County gave them the big punch. And maybe these people did not. They took it on the chin. Like, several people didn't even report it or say anything. They just went with the flow. And so we've advised our clients to go in and get it relooked at and get it reassessed there, so they're not paying 9 grand a year on a house that's a little over $500,000. I think that's ludicrous.
I just had that same situation with my listing in Independence, the veterinarian practice. They reassessed her practice at like 550,000 and wanted $15,000 in taxes. So she had an appraiser come in, and it only appraised for 365. So they drastically reduced the amount of taxes due, and then we drastically reduced the price. So it's really important that people go get those appealed, because that's a substantial amount of money that they shouldn't be paying. So my other thing that we can add value for our clients is if you're watching things. So I was looking at the acreage for my grandparents, and I noticed that they're paying taxes on 10 acres as residential, which isn't true, because we pulled like 300 bales off their pasture this summer. So I'm going to work with my grandparents and my mom and go to Cass County and have them redo that, because my grandparents should have never been paying for 10 acres residential. We've hayed that ground for years. So, but it's something that we can do for our clients is, hey, did you know, like, you only have to have per Cass County, and I've heard this from Valerie directly, you have to have half an acre for your house, and the rest can be considered ag if you are truly farming it. So like half of our 10 acres is pasture and we have it hayed. And then the other 5 is full of toys, children's toys.
Hey, Shelby,
Stuff.
are they looking at you as ag on less than 20? Are you on less than 20 acres?
Yeah, we're on 10.
You're on 10 acres, and
Yep.
they're putting you in as ag on that?
Yep, I have half ag.
Not okay. That's great that they're doing that. My understanding
Yeah.
is that they wouldn't do ag on anything less than 20, but they would look at it in, like, on 10 acres, look at like rural residential instead of residential, which is a different taxing strategy. So they may be looking at RR instead of residential. Rural residential would be the term. So look at that and see if that's the case too. Rural residential is still pretty pricey on taxes. If you can get to ag, that's your lowest bracket you can get into. But if they'll do ag on 10, please let me know that for sure, because I was under the understanding they were not going to give anybody the ag tag unless they're 20 or more.
Let me pull up my tax bills and I will confirm that. So, yeah,
Okay.
because I know it's separated on our things.
Mhm.
Okay, so is anyone else seeing issues with appraisers notating different things on conventional loans? I've had a couple hiccups this week with things that shouldn't have been an issue with the conventional loan type that now they're nitpicking.
What are
So
give us an example of what you ran into.
we had a seller, I was on the buyer side, seller put in the seller's disclosure that there were a few cracks in the foundation, and underwriting came back and said, we need something that says, those are fine. Well, I've visited with the Alibis, and Ron and Jordan can't put something into a report saying that it's fine because they're not structural engineers. So we had Bob Quick come out, and for $220 cash or Venmo, if you pay credit card, it's $250 for anybody that has this come up too. And he gave us a clean bill of health because the basement's perfect. There's hardly, the cracks are so minuscule, and then the underwriters were good with it. But I think we're going to start seeing a true hard trend across the board of they are really looking at those sellers' disclosures now.
Yeah, I think the old thinking was, if I'm not doing a government deal, then let's just, for the most part, the underwriters are looking at the house as is on a conventional deal. And I think what's happening is, and this has come up on other conversations, is these lenders are taking it upon themselves to go a little deeper. And if they see something that concerns them, they're going to red flag it. And I know Nathan mentioned this a week or two ago, and I think that is just the trend in the direction we're going in. And I think one of the things we have to keep in mind, not all conventional deals are created equal. You can have somebody buying a $500,000 house that's borrowing 200,000. Okay, that's about as safe as it gets, right, for a bank. You could also have somebody putting 3% down. So, and I don't know what the circumstances were here, but not all those just because it's conventional, really, there's more to it than that. But I think the new expectation is do not take for granted that a conventional deal will get through underwriting with no conditions or requirements.
Yeah, I think when explaining offers to the seller now, in light of this new procedure that it seems like underwriting has, is we could probably still say that conventional is going to be easier to get through, but we're learning that this is kind of a new trend. It could get worse, it could get better, but yeah, as always, we need to tell the seller, if the buyer wants something fixed from an inspection, that's negotiable. If the appraiser or underwriting call for something to be fixed, that's non-negotiable.
Great point.
So,
Great point. Well, and things evolve in each market. I think, we all know what's happened in the last, year or two because it's fresh on our mind. But, Darren and I were in a market at one time that you could sell a house conventionally and it's just a golden deal and all that. 2009, 10, 11, especially, that all of a sudden the underwriters would come back and say, we're going to want more down on this. And the reason being, the buyer was fine, the ratios were fine, but the house was in an area where they felt values were declining. Therefore, they wanted more down and or more PMI, mortgage insurance, that sort of thing. So, each market can start to, have different nuances. And I think right now what I'm hearing is, because what Shelby just mentioned, and I appreciate her sharing, it has been mentioned by others. I'm not sure we've run into it yet, but I'm expecting that we will, just based on, the good thing about our office is we get to see 70 something deals a month. So you get an idea really fast of what's going on in the marketplace, not just your own deals that you're in.
Is anybody on like the resolutions going through and asking for the sellers to fix certain things so that you don't have hiccups? I did that recently and I haven't heard back from the appraiser, or we haven't heard back from the appraiser just yet, but I'm hoping the little things that we had the seller do ahead of time will prevent issues. There was just like dirt that needed to be pushed up underneath stairs so they weren't just floating, and just maintenance items that needed to be done. And they were so gracious and they did all of it. But is anybody else putting that into the resolutions?
Oh yeah, if I see something that's a major red flag on like an FHA loan or something like that, I'll put that on there. And usually I'll phrase it as, oh, my buyers aren't asking for this. This will get kicked back in the appraisal kind of thing, like, and then I can ask for other stuff that my buyers are asking for. But that one doesn't count because we weren't asking for it.
Sometimes we'll get kicked back like, well, we'll just get it in the appraisal then, but no, we're not doing it yet.
Yeah, that's
But at least, hey,
that
it's on the
happens.
radar though. They know it's coming and it's what it is. But yeah, that's one of those things. And I always preface our buyer clients like, hey, if it doesn't get caught in appraisal, well, that's what it is. Be okay with that too. But it's on our radar. But yeah, if you can get it done in resolution, kudos.
Cool. And something I wanted to bring up is on seller's disclosures. I had missed this during a meeting, and we need to be putting excluded on those chimneys because chimneys come with a lot of problems. And I missed that, and my clients have to fix this chimney if they decide they would like to use it. And we're still moving forward with the home and everything. But I missed that it was excluded on the seller's disclosure. So that was a hard lesson. But just want to make sure.
I think something to keep in mind is, and that it always sounds like a great idea. Once you get a seller down that path of excluding things, then they're wanting to exclude all kinds of things. And then all of a sudden you draw a red flag to your property. One of the things we talked about is personal property. If you're going to have washer, dryers, and fridge, the last thing in the world you want to do is, because they're throw-ins, right? They're personal property. You certainly don't want to be warranting them in any way or having to repair them. That doesn't make any sense. So that's an ideal exclusion. But if you get into bigger ticket items and you start excluding them, because otherwise, why would we just exclude the roof and different things like that? It can be very difficult to engage a buyer and to get fair market value. So always keep that in mind as well.
Okay, so for our businesses, as everybody's had time to reflect on what transpired this summer, I know I'm looking back wondering like what happened this summer, what did I do efficiently and what did I do inefficiently? Is there something that I've learned is next summer I will have Laura Crotty show more houses for me to get back a little bit of time. And I will also have a transaction coordinator from May to August to help out with that stuff. So that's two business things that I can do better next year to levy my time. But what's something that you guys noticed in second quarter that you're going to look at doing differently in the future? Or that you were happy with that went well in the second quarter? You guys are so quiet today. I need help today.
So, hey, Shelby, so one of the things we'll take a look at is in the business, and there's like, you guys understand, like the 185 things to do if you want to run a transaction, right? You got to do all 185 things if you're a single agent. And so one of the things that Gary teaches us is to write down all the stuff that we love to do. And then everything else is the things we don't love doing. And then find somebody to go do those things that you don't love to do. And then you focus on the things that you're good at, the one thing. So start writing that list out, Shelby. Start figuring out that piece. And then you mentioned just getting a TC for part of the year. Why don't you just get one for the whole year? It's a cost of sale. It's a cost of sale. So it's only going to cost you should you have a transaction. So, put them in the game. And then that way you've got that support as needed on call without having to write the check every month regardless. So it's only happening. And then that starts to get you in a position where you're not handling that portion of the business anymore. You're able to go do the thing that you do the best, which is a higher dollar producing activity per hour.
Go for it all year. I've tried it. I'm a control freak, so letting go of transaction coordinating is so hard. I'm a dork and I do like the documents.
Can I help you with that?
I know you cute little daughter in there that will do it for me and save me a lot of
No,
time.
not even that. It's like, you think you're the best transaction coordinator in Kansas City? That's pretty arrogant. You're a better salesperson than transaction coordinator is what I'm saying. So find you a TC and let them handle that stuff for you.
Okay, deal.
Get a showing assistant. Let them handle your showings for you. Negotiate the deals. Great. But get somebody to support you. Get your time back so you're spending time with your husband and your kids.
Okay, deal. Right. I have to make that decision. Okay,
Yeah, I have a quick question. You mentioned Bob Quick earlier. I've had the last couple transactions that I've had when they've needed us to call in a structural engineer, that my co-op agents, who are very good agents, are not asking us to not use Bob Quick. They will refer 3 or 4 other structural engineers. Is anybody else having that? I know out here, that's who I learned to use 10 years ago. Is anybody else seeing that issue? When you mentioned his name, I thought of that.
I'll hit that one because I have quite a track record here with this
Okay.
person, 20 plus years. Bob's a great guy, by the way.
Yeah.
I think what he has earned over time, fair or not, is that he's a little easier to work with than most. He's inexpensive, especially if you pay cash, and things like that. And so agents know they've had him on both ends of the transaction. I like Bob. I actually think if you're getting Bob, you have somebody knowledgeable and is forthright and all those sorts of things. That being said, if I had a massive investment in something and it had major structural, I would go in a different direction. So,
Okay.
and in fact, I've advised one of my friends out in my community down a different path, and Bob would have been cheaper and all those things. And not to say Bob's not competent, but
Right.
So I have run into that, Chris, a time or two over the years.
Okay.
And really that's no different than anybody else who's used a lot, right? Or
Right.
does a lot of business.
Sure,
How many times
sure.
have you heard Summit Homes is terrible? Well, because they have the most people with houses out there, naturally
Right.
they're going to have a following of people that aren't thrilled with everything.
Right.
But Bob's probably done more structurals than anybody in our county. Yeah. So that's kind of how Larry Ritter, an appraiser, used to be just the devil. I mean, that's how he was perceived because he did the most appraisals in the county.
Right.
But yeah, that doesn't surprise me entirely.
Okay.
And I have run into that a time or two.
Yeah.
So,
The little last few that I've had that needed, I use Laura Crotty's husband and he works great. So there are alternatives, but that was always my go-to person. And all of a sudden I'm seeing this written on the resolution, that they want get an opinion of a structural engineer, and we will not accept Bob Quick as, the structural engineer. I'm like, wow, okay.
can I say something that just happened with Bob Quick? I will
Sure.
never use him and I would never recommend him. So, the buyers for my Harrisonville listing hired Bob Quick to come in and I'm not sure who did the inspection, but he had all kinds of stuff on there. He said it needed new I-beams. Every single crack had to be filled. And so I had my son Daniel go out there and look, and he noticed that they were the original 12 years ago put I-beams up. And he's like, ask him where they're supposed to go, because he didn't see anything. And then he measured the cracks, and it was like $6,000 worth of cracks that had to be filled. And they were nothing. They were like hairline, just absolutely nothing that really needed to be filled. And like no leaks. And anyway, so I emailed because I was mad and, trying to figure out what happened. And this set us back 10 days. And so he came back and said that it was all a mistake. And so I told them that I want a corrected inspection report. And he just said there's no issues. So here we lost 10 days in this for all this fake stuff that they supposedly needed. And I'll never use them. I'm going to call the county about it and send them both copies. It was ridiculous. So
Well, I've used him before and my clients have always been happy. In fact, I met him when I first got in this business working for Ryan and Stephanie. And, I met him on a job then and he's always super nice and he's willing to work with everybody. But I mean, my last couple of transactions that have had structural, have recommended that we get a structural engineer, take a look, and they have put in the resolution. I don't know if they're supposed to or not, but to keep the deal together, obviously we went in a different direction. But yeah, they wrote in writing, we will not accept Bob Quick. And I was like, holy cow. And this is one of the guys, the most recent one, has done a ton of work out here in Cass County. So he's obviously aware of them, but he's probably the third person I've heard that from. I'm like, what is going on?
That'll never happen. I always recommended him. I heard nothing but good things, but after this one, nope.
Yeah.
We've had good luck with Ryan Samuelson, who I think also works with Bob. I don't know if you've seen him. He's a 40-ish, maybe year-old guy. He does good work. So
I would never. Just my experience.
Hey, Chris, did those buyers want to pay for that engineer to come out there?
No.
Yeah, I bet they didn't. But they didn't.
No,
They
they
wanted
did
to tell you
not.
who to use, though, huh?
Yeah, well, and they did, and I was like, well, okay. I mean, honestly, that's how I found Laura's ex-husband because I was like racking my brain trying to figure out, and everybody at the office was like, "Oh, you can call Laura's ex-husband." I'm like, "Okay, okay." I even called Laura because I couldn't get back. They were busy on some jobs, and they weren't calling me, as fast as I thought they should have, of course. And but they came out and were great. So that will always be my number one go-to if there's issues from here on out. But I just had never, in 10 years, I hadn't heard that about Bob Quick. And then probably in the last 9 months, I've heard it 3 times.
I think it'd be smart for us to be careful calling out someone like that, especially on paper. You could
Yeah, I thought
open
the
ourselves
same
up
thing.
for liability or something there.
I
We all
thought,
know builders in the area who are shady as hell or who are dishonest, Chevalier,
Yeah.
but we won't mention any names. So you got to be careful. I think Lonnie would probably tell you the same. So
yeah, I agree. I agree. In fact, but the last guy is a great co-op agent, knows his stuff. He's been in the business, I think 15 years, super nice co-op agent. I mean, fantastic. And I probably should have just called him and asked him at the time, but I was like, all I was doing was scrambling, was trying to find somebody else to get the issue resolved in a timely manner. So,
I imagine someone lost a deal once because of an inspection from someone like that, and they decided we're just never going to like this guy again because they didn't bend or whatever, So
yeah.
This segues really well into something I wanted to talk about today. Shelby, I don't mean to step on your toes. I can hold this off for the end if you want.
No, please go for it.
We are going, we've talked about this in the office and every week this shows up on my desk is we are moving into a time in real estate where every transaction has the ability to be scrutinized. And sometimes this is a month after the closing, the 6 months, 2 years. There's just so many situations coming to light. And we're involved in a couple of them. And I think one of the things we got to really think, I hear this all the time, including I'm guilty of saying it myself, is if you're one of those people that says, hey, this is my home inspector, we're done with that. Okay. If you want to put yourself in a bad position, have a text or a conversation or an email that says, Johnny's my home inspector, here's his services, or go to his website and let me know what services you want. Those days are over. If we are going to have to start taking steps to lessen the opportunity for risk to come back on us. The spike in number of claims for, and by the way, most of the claims that happen in real estate are complete bullshit. But nonetheless, if an agent brings in one of their deals to me, and this is a threatening letter from a buyer that we represented, and the inspector missed this, and this, I know where this is going. If they file a lawsuit, it's against my agent, it's against the brokerage. And guess what? Then we have to engage our insurance, which is expensive. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts. That's how these work. And the reason being, the crappy attorney in downtown Belton, Missouri, he knows that the people don't have any money, but he knows we have insurance. And insurance companies will write checks just to stay out of the fray, right or wrong. So that we're seeing a massive increase in the number of these kind of incidents and claims. And I think we're just at the beginning. So we really are going to have to start thinking differently. I hope it doesn't come down to having to have more and more paperwork that are disclaimers and things, CYAs. But I have a feeling some of that's probably going to be necessary, because if my inspector is Jimmy and I like Jimmy more than anybody, if my people pick Jimmy, that's one thing. But if I give them, hey, here's 3 amazing inspectors, there's hundreds of inspectors in Kansas City. Here's 3 that not only myself and my clients, we've had great feedback with. You obviously can pick whomever you choose. Just why don't you do some research and let me know? That's probably where the conversation is going to have to go. And then if they say, well, what do you think? And I said, honestly, Mark does a great job. He's done a few for us this month. The feedback I get from my people has been very positive. But all of these are talented people. That's how this is going to have to look. Otherwise, by the way, in many cases, the inspectors made no mistake. It's just something happened to the house. Did we have a 7-inch rain this summer? We had some events happen that are just act of God type things. And water doesn't know if you've got a $150,000 house or a $1.5 million house. So it's alarming what I'm seeing. It's more alarming what I'm hearing, especially on a national basis. And if we're not starting to kind of prepare for these things and start to have our conversations look differently, it has the potential to be really, really ugly. We lost an agent a few years ago. His very first deal, he got in a lawsuit, and it was just bad. Everything was bad luck, to be perfectly honest with you. But it caused him to say, "This business isn't for me."
Yeah.
And he could have probably insulated himself a little better. Does anybody have anything to share on that?
Hey, Lonnie, if we're going to be a little bit more exposed on this in the future, quite possibly, would it behoove us within our own individual businesses to set aside, $5 or $7 grand in case we get hit with something? That way we're prepared business wise to be able to absorb an expense on the E&O side of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think no matter what, we all have to be aware that's the potential expense is always there for us. Mm-hmm. And when I say these things are happening and they're increasing, number of sales isn't increasing, number of claims is increasing. So that tells us that our industry is being scrutinized at a higher level. Some people are saying, well, this is a little bit of the fallout because of the whole commission thing that we all dealt with a year ago. Maybe, but the reality is this is the market we're in. I mean, when Darren and I first started, real estate lawsuits were very rare. You didn't see them very much. Now, almost any attorney will look at something and go, hey, there's a real estate company involved. Yeah, they may have made a mistake here. I bet I can send a threatening letter and get them worked up to get some kind of settlement from either them or their insurance company. That's where we're going. In fact, we're there now. So I think we're just going to have to look at things differently. And this isn't just our agents that do 1 deal a year, 2 years a deal, or dual career people, which we love. This is everybody. And we're in one right now. And I'm like, I like to think we probably police our deals as well as anybody. And I'm not sure the people are in the right in their concerns. Nonetheless, it's probably something we'll have to defend. So if all it takes is one email saying, hey, here's my inspector, Jimmy. He's amazing. Let's get him set up to do the house. And if, by the way, 99% of the time, that's fine. It's the 1% we're talking about.
We went through that frothiness of the biggest run up houses being sold in hours and people waiving rights to things, and we kind of saw a opportunity for lawsuits because people were waiving rights to things so fast, right? And then what happens shortly after that, these attorneys find there's now a market to attack a new insurance company that maybe wasn't on Front Street quite as much prior to. You hear the term ambulance chasers tied to attorneys. Well, now they're just trying to find opportunities because they've been exposed to a new market from phone calls that they've received, in my opinion. So
Nate, I agree with you on that.
Being aware of how you communicate with your clients, still providing high levels of service, but attaching yourself to somebody else's business isn't protecting your own, I think is the right way to say that. So
yeah. I would agree.
There's a massive correlation with claims, and by claims I mean things that these E&O companies get involved in. There's a massive correlation to two things. One, people selling property that they own, or they are selling on behalf of friends or family. So there's that tie. Because that then, whether there's impropriety or not, there's just the natural, there could be kind of setup. So you really have to watch that. Anybody selling their house themselves, I would layer myself with all kinds of CYAs and protections and things like that just to be on the safe side, because it is just a massive part of this industry and where they're going. I mean, it's just, they could almost just go through all transactions that were people selling their own stuff and probably make a living just in those deals. So we're going to talk a lot more about this. It's such a negative Nelly conversation. I hate to have it at team meetings and things like that, but the things I see, myself included, the conversations I hear, myself included, all need to be done a little bit differently going forward.
Lonnie, you mentioned this before, like we have this is a multi-billion-dollar industry with commissions paid out across this country per year. So we've got this massive piece of pie. And I think what we're headed into and what we're seeing now with the lawsuits and E&Os, it's just another disruptor with inside of our business. It's coming from a different angle, it feels like, but they're coming for part of your commissions. They're going to get that money. They're going to be able to figure out how to get part of it. They're not going to get it all, but they're going to get inside this billion-dollar industry and collect some of it. And they've got time to do it. They do it for a living. One of the things that we did, and we've talked about this before, but we created a form with all the different types of inspections that you can run on a property. And when we're doing our consultation, we go through that form specifically and have them sign that form on all the different types of inspections they are allowed to do and can do. And that way we have educated them on that. They've acknowledged it and signed that with us. It's another CYA. It does come down to who they choose to do that, and giving multiple opportunities to pick their inspectors is definitely one that we want them to take too. But if you're not doing that, get them educated on what types of inspections, depending on the property, that they could do, and have them sign off on that they know they can do these inspections.
This goes on a lot of levels too. Home inspection, it just seems to be a hot button. But if I have a seller and the roof gets red flagged and it becomes clear we're going to put a new roof on, it is not my job to pick the roofer. Okay. And if I choose to take that on, I've just taken on some potential liability that I shouldn't be taking on. Now, I bet I've put on 50 roofs with one or two roofers the whole time, okay, because they're people we trust and have used. Well, I'm in a lawsuit on one of them right now. So, at the end of the day, let the seller, who, by the way, your seller loves you. You swept their house when they moved, and you hugged their kids and took a great picture and all this kind of stuff. The second there's legal rumblings, that relationship is different. Trust me. Nanette and I are dealing with one of those right now. And you talk about a relationship that was ironclad until it wasn't. So, but if we need to be saying, hey, okay, we're going to need to put a roof on the house. I can give you a list of some credible people who've done roofs in our area that have a good reputation. If you want to do the research on your own, that's fine too. You let me know. And then they'll go, well, yeah, we haven't had to put a roof on a house, Lonnie. Great. I'm going to send you 3 names. Get online and let me know who you want to have out there. That sort of thing. But if we're going to steer these people down any path, our clients feel like they had to use this person, then we put ourselves in the crosshairs.
Hey, Lonnie, out of those three people, I trust your opinion. Which one would you choose? I
Huh?
get that a lot where people are like, I don't know. I'm not, what do you recommend? That's
Yeah.
usually a lot of the
Yeah,
response.
they're all three of these are solid. I have no real favorites. John has done 3 or 4 of my last few buyers for us, and the feedback has been fantastic. So, just do your research and let me know which direction you want to go.
Okay. Yeah,
Now, to be honest with you, if you're putting 3 people on a piece of paper and it's part of your presentation, do they often go with the first one? Yeah, that's quite very much the case. But we're going to have to just think differently. Every time there's a decision like this to be made, even though we want to give business to our favorite this or our favorite that, I think we're going to have to we at least are going to have a conversation that would have protection for us should something go wrong. Should that electrician, should that plumber, should that roofer, should they, if people come back later and say, hey, that guy the seller had out was a moron, we're finding out that the house was unsafe for this reason or that reason. Your client was given options. That's who they picked.
Couple things I'd kind of want to add to that, and this whole conversation has been perfect, but anytime you as an agent make a suggestion on something, you're adding liability to that transaction and to yourself. And another little thing that, so we have our preferred vendors every week, but that does not mean every agent has to recommend those people, and recommend those people with 2 others.
Yeah, I was just gonna, when Lonnie was saying that, I mean, it goes all the way back to your lenders. It goes all the way in the beginning of transactions as well.
what if
Yeah,
we
even
only
title
know like
companies.
one person? Like for septics and stuff, like I really only know and trust Rusty. How do I
Wow.
recommend that? You can do Rusty or somebody from Google, I guess, do your research.
Well, I've done it before and I've researched people and I've just said I've had a couple people with it, and it was before Rusty was in the business. And I just basically said, these are, this one person I've heard of. I know other agents have used them. I hadn't never been in that situation. And I said, here are 2 other that look like they were from Kansas, but they worked on the Missouri side. And I just said, you can call and make your own decision.
As far as septic, you can usually get a list from the county health
Yeah.
department of people that are approved through the county.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but those are people that are approved. There's a lot of people that do garbage work. I know Rusty does good. I mean, it's just hard for me to recommend people that I don't know if they do a good job. I mean, I'll say that whenever I give them that phone number, but it's kind of like goes back to, hey, am I buying a house in the ghetto? How we can't answer that question.
Exactly.
I don't know. It kind of seems a little gray there.
And it's never a problem until it is, right?
Yeah.
And that's where the attorneys, they know the game. They're going to say, okay, let's look back. This Jake guy, this real estate agent, it looks like, he organized the septic install. Who did the work? Okay, they did. Were you given options? No, Jake said these are great people. They got a great track record. They're approved by the county, all that kind of stuff. So he didn't give you options. That's how attorneys approach everything. So they can blow up. And again, when there's no problems, guys, all this works fine. We're trying to prepare for that 1% situation because we're seeing more and more of these situations arrive in our industry. I feel like as a whole, we've kept our nose pretty clean, which always makes me worry. Have we just been pretty lucky? We have a great hands-on broker that is willing to help us. We also have an ALC of leaders that are willing to help our agents. And I think the combination of those really does give us a better chance to have less problems. Many of you guys are co-oping with these different brokers that have thousands of agents, and they wouldn't even know how to get a hold of their broker. It's a virtual impossibility. We're really fortunate in that manner. So you're going to see some of these companies probably, especially the ones that'll just park a license, they probably will start having minimum requirements to have a license hung there because they know that if these people run into a deal, the chance of liability is higher.
Hey, thank you so much, guys, for chiming in on all of those situations. One thing I do for my clients with mortgage officers, for example, is I just have a draft email and I copy and paste it each time. It says the same thing every single time. These are 3 mortgage officers that I recommend, and please click their links to check them out and see if you like them. How else does anybody else do it?
I would remove the recommend language and
Yeah.
say that here's 3 loan officers who have a proven track record.
Okay, proven track record. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's not, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, there's dozens of great there's hundreds of home inspectors out there. Many of them are extremely talented. Here's 3 that we have that we've had that have a good reputation in our marketplace. Please do your research. Everybody looks at reviews now. Go let them go home with a cold beer and do the research. Yeah, would we always feel more comfortable if they picked the guy we know the best? Sure. I know it always drove me a little crazy when our buyers would call and say, hey, I want to use this inspector, and it's somebody we've never dealt with. But the reality is maybe that's best. You guys get that?
Yeah.
So it is just a new world we're going into. It's just a phase of real estate and where we're at in the cycle. And everything is telling me to be very cautious going forward. And what can happen is you can have an agent who's doing really well in their business, and one bad incident can cause them such an upheaval, not necessarily the deductible on E&O or any of that, the money part of it, but just the mental anguish and the worry of having to get in there and do deposition and all these things. It can take them off their game and cost them, forget the deductible, it can cost them a career, but it certainly can cost them a lot of time where they could be doing good productive business.
I have a question about this topic. I know I'm working on my website. Caesar's been helping us create that. And then again, being a new agent, a lot of the trainings and videos and things I've watched really emphasize about being the go-to person for your clients, and not just as a realtor, but just as a resource. And a lot of that has to do with sort of vendor recommendations. And even on our personal websites, about creating that tab that has preferred vendors. Again, just how do you balance that strategy of being the go-to person, having something like that on your website to drive past clients and maybe people who aren't quite ready yet? So, because in my mind, that was like, hey, that's a great strategy. I want to, and I've had people already, several people ask me. So I hear the language about being careful how you say it, but just curious, that is a strategy. Do you think that's going by the wayside, or is that something we still want to sort of press into?
I
I
think the key is
can,
to have multiple, and then people
yeah.
get.
What was that?
Sorry about that. I said the key is to have multiple vendor referrals in every area, and those people are the ones who get to make the choice from the selection that you sent instead of just sending the one.
Yeah, I would agree with it. I have a ton of clients that, they joke around and they're like, oh, we need an electrician. Oh, call Chris. She's got she's our human Rolodex. And
Right.
that's funny and everything. But I always, always give 3 recommendations. And I don't even call them recommendations. I'm like, hey, here's, 2 people that I've worked with, and here's a third that I've never worked with. However, I hear of them at my office or whatever the case may be. I just take myself out of it and say, do your homework yourself. Let me know who you work with and let me know if they worked out for you or not. I really emphasize that it's their decision. It's not my decision.
Yeah, because we can still be
I
we
think,
can be a great resource and
yeah,
not steer them in one direction.
yeah.
Hey, as you mentioned, here's 3 electricians. These are people that we believe have a pretty good reputation. I'd like you tonight to go and do some research and then let me know which one of these you want to have bid this job out. That sort of thing. You gave them a sense of direction. Not saying they had to even use one of those three, but here's three worthy of researching. But it is a balancing act. There was a time we wanted to be the immediate answer for all things and have our concierge team of people and plug and play. That's what a professional does. And that is great until it's not. So we're going to just have to be careful. We have to redesign what that's going to look like. And this is just, something that's really occurred. It's become more a concern in the last couple of years.
One last quick thing I wanted to throw in. It's kind of funny. And I know we're past 11, but years ago, my father-in-law had thought about, because he's built a bunch of houses and has a lot of knowledge, and he started thinking about becoming a home inspector. And immediately I said, I will never use you. And my wife and him kind of looked at me, and I said, there's no way. I will not, I cannot, and I will never use you as a home inspector.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody. That makes sense.
I mean, I had one to put this in a different perspective, kind of like Darren. I had a client and I've helped them. I've helped their child buy a house, but sell houses, lots of transactions. Great, great people. The guy's an engineer. But I didn't recommend, but in the very beginning of my career, I gave him Todd's name and Tim Irvin, whoever. Anyway, 3 different lenders to get his, his mortgage through. And I will never forget, he emailed me, and Todd remembers this, at 6 o'clock on a Saturday morning. We were getting ready to go look at houses, and he sent me an email, and he had Google searched Todd's house
Okay.
in Creekmore.
I will leave Raymore here immediately and see you when I get there.
Rookie.
Perfect. Thank you. Bye.
Anyway, he had Google searched Todd's house in Creekmore. It was before Todd sold his house. And he sent me a scathing email asking me if I was in cahoots because this was Lonnie's brother and all this stuff. And I mean, I had to backpedal, and I gave him 3 different people to call. But he's like, what's the deal? What's going on here? He was just being an engineer. I'm still dear friends with him to this day. But man, I had to backpedal fast. And I really don't know why I backpedaled, because I gave him 3 to call. But he ended up going in a different direction. And really what had happened is I was doing a deal with Shane on that. And Shane wanted Todd to be the lender. And so, we kind of were trying to massage that for the client to head in that direction. And that guy did not like it. So you just never know. I mean, nothing ever came of it, but you just never know.
All right, guys. Well, thank you guys so much for joining the call. I hope everybody has some great takeaways from today. I know I did. And we will see you all on Tuesday at team meeting. Remember, there is our appraisal class after team meeting with Todd. And they're also serving lunch. So please RSVP on Facebook. If you're going to sign up for Bold, please let Brandy know and Tim. Thanks so much, guys.
Great job, Shelby. Thank you.
Great holidays. Bye.
Bye.